Hey guys, welcome back to Mind Your Feed, which is a podcast that is focused on all the topics that are flooding your social media feeds, and we are tackling them from a mental health perspective. And so, at the time of this podcast, we are barreling down on the Christmas holiday. I am Jessica, and this is Daniel. He's going to be joining us today. And we are actually co-counselors together. And he is at the office because he's going to work today. And I am at home because I am not. And so today's topic that we're going to bridge is boundaries in general, because Oprah Winfrey has recently showed up and showed out on a podcast that she recently released regarding essentially not necessarily boundaries, but people going no contact. And so we're going to just actually jump in and take a little look at what Oprah, who once upon a time was the queen. I'm not so certain she's the queen anymore, but I do think she definitely holds some water still with like those younger boomers and definitely Gen X. So let's see what Oprah was kind of visiting about on her podcast.
Leading experts, and people with different experiences and points of view on this issue, including parents whose adult children have cut them off. And we'll hear from other adult children who chose to go no contact with their parents. I know this is a tender, hot button topic. My hope is that we can open up the heart space and really listen. I'm not on anybody's side. I just want to hear what everyone has to say. So let's start by introducing Dr. Joshua Coleman, who's a psychologist and best-selling author of Rules of Estrangement: Why Adult Children Cut Ties and How to Heal the Conflict. Now, he's a frequent contributor to the Washington Post column, Ask a Therapist. Welcome, Dr. Coleman.
Thank you for having me.
So is this a new thing? Because, for many, many, many years of doing shows and talking to families from all over the country and the world, when there's a crisis, people just sort of figured it out or came together at Thanksgiving and had a big fight. But is this new?
Yeah, there's always been estrangements, right? Forever there's been estrangements. But it's new the way we think about family. There's been a radical change in the way that we think about family. The old days of honor thy mother and thy father, respect thy elders, families forever, has given way to this much more of an emphasis on personal happiness, personal growth, my identity, my political beliefs, my mental health. So much so that today protecting my mental health is the single most common thing that I see in every single letter from every estranged adult child.
Has this happened?
Okay, we're going to stop right there, and we may go back and forth, but I kind of wanted to share that. And so any thoughts right then and there off of that, Daniel?
Yeah, it's been far more common of a sentiment for people to not want to engage or work on their relationships or other aspects of their life, but in this context, being distant or completely cutting off somebody for their own mental health, for their own benefit, and that's becoming way more common. And the whole family dynamic has also changed in all kinds of ways, and this is just one of those.
Sure.
One of those things.
Sure. So one thing that stuck out to me was that when he talked about initially like what family and what it meant to be in relationship used to be, it was like others first and me second, right? Like honor, do this, do that. Like there were rules, right? And now it's like more like, what about me, and how do I feel in this relationship? And I don't think that is wrong. But one thing that I do think we need to bridge first is like, we are not against no contact in the most difficult and abusive and inappropriate situations 100%. When that's a whole nother bridge. So I kind of want to show this. image, and I'm going to share this screen again, and we can talk through this one, but there is something called the power and control wheel, right? And this basically identifies all types of, and it's not all inclusive, but I think it does deal with a lot of like abusive situations, whether it's sexual or physical or economic or emotional or psychological, whether it's like manipulation, using kids against each other, minimizing, denying, blaming, all these types of things, coercion or threats. One thing I see here is also male privilege, but interestingly enough, I thought it was also something that we needed to share was that actually I did some research, and there was some really good research about like men are also victims of physical abuse from women, and that is not ever talked about. Just if we're really honest, it's not something that is really bridged that much. And one of the things that I saw in here was like 1 in 3 domestic violence cases are cases of men being assaulted by women. So in all of those situations and more, we would say there is probably a high likelihood that you should go what was considered to be no contact.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
want to start there.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move now to boundaries, relationships, estrangements, these types of things. So Daniel, wherever you want to kind of jump off, I think kind of maybe let's start with like what in a counseling dynamic, what would, if someone said like, I really want to work on my boundaries, well, what are boundaries?
Yeah. So boundaries are limitations around certain aspects of your relationship with somebody else, right? So you could have limits. Most people understand standard boundaries like time, right? Like, oh, I can only be here for a certain amount of time. I'm only doing this. That's a boundary.
Yep.
Emotional boundaries, being like, I'm only going to talk about these things, or I only feel comfortable with these things with these amount of people. You don't talk about certain things that you talk about with your kids that you do with your wife or your husband.
Yeah.
You have boundaries there. And so they're pretty much like limits. Some are hard stops, and some are more malleable, and so they change over time. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
They're not always going to be the same.
Yeah.
And so really just whatever these limiters are, or sometimes they're even gray area, and you don't know until it happens that you're like, I actually don't like this, or I want to do more of this. I'm going to increase this boundary, give more leeway to this person. But it's different from relationship to relationship.
Yeah. Now, my idea about boundaries is boundaries were always to be put in place as like a way to fortify relationships, like not control, not punish, not push people away, not manipulate, but instead like create safety, trust, respect, open and clear communication, making sure everyone like in the relationship is the behaviors that are expected in both ways, like it's a two-way street kind of thing, like an agreement, something that we determine that together we can both kind of like honor each other in those ways.
Yeah, and especially it's all different. So if you have the difference between like a parent and a child, like those boundaries, those change as they get older, as a child gets older.
Sure.
And in a marriage, in a romantic relationship between any two people, those are usually decided together. And sometimes they're discovered, right? I didn't like this. I didn't know you felt this way about what I did.
Yeah.
Those things happen all the time too.
Sure. So people come in and they're like, I'm in a toxic relationship with my mom or with my brother or with my whole family, or my family's toxic. That's a common one. My family's toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. How do you like dive into there and find out, like, what does that actually mean for a family to be toxic? And I say that because we're talking about minding our feeds. I could get on right now to Instagram and see lots of 7-second clips telling me I need to set boundaries because of this behavior of one person, or this behavior. If these behaviors are present, then I should be setting boundaries, or that this is what it looks like to be a toxic human. If the person you're dating is doing this, this, and this is all red flags. All of these things, and like, I'm just curious as to. I think toxic behaviors are those abusive behaviors.
Yeah, yeah.
That would be what I consider toxic. Outside of that, like, if I'm having a relationship that I want to maintain and continue, but the person is unwilling to meet me in the places of boundaries, that person just might not be receptive to relationship with me. And that means maybe that I am going to create some space between us,
Distance.
but it doesn't necessarily mean that that person, in my idea, my perspective, it doesn't necessarily mean that that person is toxic. In my mind, it's like, that person doesn't have the skills, that person isn't ready for this. Maybe that person doesn't value my relationship with me as much as I value relationship with them, and that's totally okay too. Like, we don't get to be the arbiter of that. And so what does, when it comes in and it's these toxic relationships, yet they're not like something we're actually abandoning because of like these abusive patterns, what does that mean?
So, right. So I think you're touching on something specific that maybe as a culture, especially as an online society now, that where a lot of culture takes place, we've kind of abandoned the grace you give to people of maybe, oh, maybe they're going through something, or they just don't have the skills, like you were saying, like, oh, that person, I just need to keep some space between us, because of, you actually consider where this other person might be coming from or understanding, where we used to kind of give that that grace to, let's say an example would be someone from another country coming in. They don't understand the norms, or they don't understand things. We treat them a little bit differently. We have to kind of understand where they're coming from, right? Where now in our relationships, a lot of people are just kind of abandoning the relationship altogether because they don't want to work on it. They don't really consider the other person's side or want to. Maybe they politically believe this other thing, and therefore it makes it easier for this person to write them off.
Yeah, I think Oprah, I mean, God bless her. And I was telling you this before, but I'm like, girl, you're like 4, 8, 12, maybe 16 years late to the party, honey. Like, she's like shocked by it, you know? And I'm like, no, this started a long time ago. I mean, there was commentary and opinion pieces and all of this stuff being written in big time news places, New York Times, I mean, just everywhere, right? About abandoning these relationships. Should I stay in a relationship with my whoever, right? Someone who didn't believe the same as me, basically.
Yeah, and so yeah, that idea, and when that concept came in, it became more about basing your relationships off of your differences first.
Sure.
So it really was like, that's the centerpiece, that's the priority, is if you don't believe or agree with these things, then what I'm not giving you, there's no grace to give. I don't want to, and that really does come again with that adoption of my mental health first, right?
Yeah.
So but also at the same time, while people are doing that, this generation, these younger kids, are the loneliest generation.
Yeah.
Yes, you can have, if you seclude yourself from everybody, then there's no effort.
Yeah.
That's what happened. There's people just aren't going to engage in relationships.
Yeah.
And so that's going to make it harder for you to build anything with anybody, especially if you wanted a family or a romance or basic friendships, and let alone your family.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was a really good point, that the relationship started on what are our differences, and can we even like coexist versus, wow, we have all of these things in common. And there's a few places where we see the world differently, but
It's the prioritization switch. Yeah.
yes, 100%. And so then entered boundaries into the culture, really, because I will be honest, and everyone will say, well, that's because we weren't as aware, and we weren't as, I don't know, in tune with everything years ago, right? But I also think, like, no one was this lonely years ago, no one was this miserable years ago. Like, there are some things that we do that the more we press into our I guess, like, self-enlightenment, the more that we actually create more problems. Because in some forms, despite what everyone wants to believe, when we think about rumination, we kind of think about it in all the negative and the unpleasant and all of that. But we can ruminate on ourselves way too much, and, like, what do I need, and how can I be fulfilled, and what is it that I expect of other people, and what are my boundaries? And when you do that, then there's no space for anyone else's feelings, thoughts, to be with you.
It used to be so commonplace too, because you're speaking on the anxious generation that exists right now, where you could actually get a lot out of self-discovery and finding out who you are through your relationships.
Yeah.
You would go practice and be like, oh, that is something I didn't know I liked that about people, and now I want that. I want to be like that. Those other things. So now, where if you're the younger kids coming up out of high school and early 20s, think they're complete people, and so then they want to cut people off, right?
Yeah.
If they don't automatically believe. And so again, there's just kind of an abandonment of almost like society, like a withdrawal,
Yeah.
and it makes it, everybody else's boundaries, it's whatever, it's whatever
Well,
I want.
I have noticed that is sometimes the people with the most stringent boundaries blow past everyone else's boundaries, because it's so solely focused on, like, making sure mine are intact, but in protecting mine, I can't see yours, and I can't honor yours, because you got to deal with you and I'm going to do me, kind of thing, right? That's a sense there. Very interesting. Okay. So I heard that man mention, a psychologist, I think, mention his book, Rules of Estrangement. Have you read that? Rules of Estrangement? Nope. Well, I guess I am a solo act for now. Let's see what he's got going on, if he can come back to us. Come back. But I have not read that book, Rules of Estrangement. So I actually wrote that down. I didn't hear you. You kind of froze on me. Did you read that book, Rules of Estrangement?
I have not read that book.
I hadn't
No.
either. That was interesting. I had not read that. So boundaries. Everyone wants to set them. How do we effectively set boundaries with our non-toxic situations? Okay. When we say toxic, I'm so over the word toxic. Everything has taken the
It's
term
overused,
toxic.
right?
I can't. I'm like, no, that is abusive. Abusive behavior and people and situations are things that we go no contact with. We do not live in those places. Now, let's get into reality, the rest of the relationship. So, like, the other 90% or the other 85%. Okay. So, someone wants to set some boundaries. How do we do that?
Okay. So, one of the things is it's still hard. It's a hard practice. I'll say even therapists, even myself, have a hard time doing, because it becomes a habit. It's an innocent habit, but it's a good practice for you to do this if you really want to practice setting boundaries. Is stating what you need without the explanation.
Okay.
You
state this on me. Show me.
Okay.
Don't really give me a real one. I'll not cry.
Right. Let's say. Let's say if you asked me to be here today for the podcast, I would say, I'm just not available.
Sure. I'm
All
not
right.
available.
I don't have to go into saying because I've been stressed lately or I'm overwhelmed and A, B, C, and D. Especially because, like, let's say there was a toxic individual, I would have to state that too. Definitely not, never Jessica. But if I would have to state that to right, someone who's toxic in the family, people who are like the word you said that is, condemnable, toxic, right? These people who they want to feed off of whatever loophole they could find.
Sure.
They want to take advantage of
Sure.
these things. And so one of the practices is just saying, hey, state what you want. That's my thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's all that is. And keeping it short and sweet really is one of those things, because the more you linger on, the more it involves questions and other things where people want to cross your boundaries if you have that situation going on.
I like that. I also think, like, repeat the same thing over and over again. If they ask you, like, you're just saying, yeah, unfortunately, I'm just not available. Yeah, I can't make it today. Like, you're saying the same thing over and over again, because consistency works in the brain, even though it's not preferred by the other person, like the unpreferred, right? But consistency works. And then the other thing is, I always remind people that if you are working to set boundaries with someone who has non-existent boundaries, that's probably going to be the most difficult person to set boundaries with, because they don't have them for themselves. It's not a skill that they have developed for whatever reason.
Right.
Maybe they're a codependent person. Maybe there's some anxious attachment stuff going there. We don't know. And we don't have to have a diagnosis for it, or we don't have to know their entire story, but we just have to recognize and be capable, understand that, like, I'm going to set boundaries with this person, and it's going to cause more conflict in the short term. And I have to be prepared for it. Like, just knowing that, like, I'm going to have lots of questions. I'm going to be asked multiple times. And that's why it's best to just say the same thing over and over again, because to me, that's protective of yourself.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. It's literally verbatim emphasizes the point every time it's reiterated.
100%.
Every time, especially if they're being pushy, because eventually, let's say it's in a group or anything, that person realizes it's them. Eventually it's them. They have to realize it being the problem. If you're like, I just said no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
A different word for no is no, right?
Yes.
Like literally. And so that person will actually, even if they have an issue with it, they can't really get past that point to get what they want from you.
For sure. I like it. I like it. Now, what if you agreed to something, and as we're going into the holiday season, and we tend to agree to a lot because everything, like, is front loaded, right? So you get all the invitations up front, all the requests to have a lunch or a dinner or a this or a that, and you agree to something up front, and then things change. Like, am I required to still go? Am I allowed to make a change? Like, what does this mean, Daniel?
So a lot of people, when they let's say they make a plan, right?
Yeah.
So the intent at the time of making the plan was this. Some people forgot they already had a prior engagement, or right, something about the event that they're going to, or whatever the thing is, they don't like it anymore, or they're not going to have the energy they thought they would. There's lots of reasons, right, in their own mind, but you're allowed to change your mind. Unless you're signing a contract, right? You're allowed to change your mind about things. And so, unless there are certain instances where that's super inconvenient and definitely would cause a problem. Let's say if you were supposed to bring the turkey for Thanksgiving, and then last minute you're like, you know what? I changed my mind. Yeah, right. Exactly.
My mental health can't handle it.
Right. And which in many cases, I think most people should try to, like, well, I get the turkey to you, but I can't stay, whatever the thing is, right? Depending on the instance. But yes, you're not morally corrupt for backing out. but you do want to give the person as much time as possible
Yeah.
before. That's what I always say is if you're having doubts, just don't do it
Yeah.
most of the time.
Well, I think that we are so wired to want to say yes to people and to all things that we deliver yeses way too far in advance anyways. We tell people yes. So a boundary might be something you can set for yourself in like these busy seasons is like, yes, I'm going to RSVP, eh, but I'm going to do that like tentative about a week before like this, party takes place or this event or this social engagement, whatever it is. And then that at least I'm semi prepared for, and then I can say a yes or a no. Then it's kind of on the calendar. I'm aware of it, like all the things, instead of like 3 weeks in advance, just being like, okay, we have all these things to go to. I'm going to RSVP for everything. And then you get there and, to that time, and it just is not working for you. The other thing that I also caution people about is, you know what? I think we have forgotten that it's okay to be minorly inconvenienced also. And I'm guilty of this, especially with like parties and things like that. Social engagements is like, I will have the best intentions and I can almost be like really excited to go. And then like I get home and the party's not for another 2 hours and I sit down and then like I'm cozy at home and I'm with my family and now I have to get out and go like battle 30 minutes of traffic to go be with people that I enjoy but are not my family. And so sometimes I have to remember that like it's okay to be minorly inconvenienced for other people. And I think we have definitely like lost a bit of that in our boundary
100%.
setting.
Yeah. If I call it like if there's a certain social toughness that is lost when you're always trying to disengage from it. And a lot of that that comes with your own battery, right? So if I were working on boundaries with somebody who had a situation like that where they're like, I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to do this. Okay, well, is this the first time this has ever happened to you where you felt this way? If it's a continuous pattern, maybe you need some boundaries with yourself. Maybe you shouldn't go get cozy before you go do your thing. Maybe you should be doing these other things. Maybe so, right? So if you see the patterns in yourself, then it's like one of those situations. It's
100%.
like, oh well, I call them irresponsible yeses, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're being irresponsible with your commitments constantly, then there's a pattern going on here for why you're doing that. Let's break it down. And a lot of times people don't necessarily have to go to therapy to figure that out. They just have to be honest with themselves about what it is.
Honest with yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say like, we love the lies we tell ourselves. Because a lot of times the lies we tell ourselves about how much we're doing, how good we're being.
Oh yeah, I trust me. That's right.
Yeah. And so let's talk about, so we talked a little bit about boundaries and kind of that's a hot topic, but also like there has been a little bit of I always call everything a perversion. Okay, so a misuse.
In technical sense, yes, yeah, but nowadays, I get you.
Right? And that like leads to manipulation, a little bit of like, we have to be honest about it. Like there's some people have been in therapy for a good long while over their lifespan. And like they know therapy speak really well. And they use it, they like weaponize that over other people, or they might even drop the "my therapist said,"
right,
or "you should be in therapy." Like we get, and I'm not against like that. People, you might need to tell someone at some point that they need to be in therapy, probably not in the middle of a contentious battle, or not when you're like, in the midst of a disagreement is the best time to do that, because then it is viewed as a little bit of manipulation. And like, I think I kind of felt like that's like trying to shuffle the power dynamics in the current like situation. And so what do you think about that? Because I am seeing more like, especially with like dating right now, but also in other forms, like I think like being around families, I think right now, like, well, we will come to Christmas if so and so doesn't stay at your house too. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that happens a lot, and they're saying that's boundaries. And I don't know if like telling someone else what they can do in their home and is boundaries. A boundary to me would be like, thank you for inviting us to stay in your home. We have actually went ahead and secured a hotel room.
Okay, so so the boundaries, the boundaries here, like I say in that scenario, is a perfect example of where people want the boundaries to be placed. They want other people to enforce boundaries so that they feel comfortable, as opposed to, you know what, that's their life and their decision to make, and I have to adapt to that, right?
Oh.
Being adaptable.
Mm.
And if that's hard for you to do that, then you need to take an honest look at yourself and say, well, okay, well, what can I do? This isn't my place. Well, okay, if I were that person hearing that, saying, well, I'm not going to go if they're going to go. Okay,
Yeah.
don't come. Thank you. I don't want your attitude here.
Yes.
And yes, and they don't have that attitude about you. So here we go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then now that relationship is fractured because this person decided to be that way, and they
Yes.
didn't need to be.
Yes.
And that
Bless.
happens.
Yes. Bless. Yes. Okay. I've had a situation where we stayed somewhere before. We won't go into details, but we stayed. And like, when I feel like, and maybe this is not my role, but and here is me expecting people to do the same thing that I would do. This is an issue. And like, I had to be honest with myself about that. Okay. And so I really try, and people who have come to my home may have a whole different idea about it, but I really try to have everything that someone could possibly need and it available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I may fail because maybe some of the things that they need, I just don't utilize or have. But I have like extra toothbrushes, extra toothpaste, like floss, shampoo, conditioner, body wash. It's all in there.
You're the Airbnb, right?
Yes, like that way people can just feel like if they want to bring their personal items, they want to bring their whole bathroom with them, great. I don't like to travel like that. I am like, wherever I'm going, you better have me some shampoo, some conditioner. Like, I don't care if it's like from the dollar store. It does not bother me. Like, it does not. And I don't want to have to bring my whole entire bathroom to stay. But this one time, I expected that type of what I consider to be hospitality. And I didn't. I was sorely mistaken.
You wanted a Marriott and you got a Motel 6, right?
Yeah, there was like one tiny little hotel shampoo. Okay, look at this hair. One tiny hotel shampoo ain't gonna do it. Like, it's not. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, never again. And we have never again done that. And it's not about, it's just like, I appreciate a situation where like those things are already there and I don't have to worry about it. And I don't have to load that up and do all those things. So no. And so, but that was a me thing. That's not them being a bad hostess. That's not them being a horrible person. That's not them not taking me into consideration. It was my expectations were here because I expected someone to do the exact same thing that I would do. And that, I think, also is where sometimes there's some manipulation and boundaries and things like that, is like expecting people to be you.
Right. Yeah, that aspect of like expectation and disappointment.
It's a real thing. You want to know about how disappointed I was with that little bitty hotel.
Put that Google review on blast, right? Yeah, then shared
I'm
it.
gonna give them a Google review. Bad, 0, 1
Yeah,
star.
whip out the Yelp. I know. So it's like when we think about what other people should be doing, right?
Mhm.
It's I think especially now it's really easy to put it out there, like on the
Yeah,
internet, to be like, oh, I think this, like, right, my opinion is what fact is, and
yeah,
if I have the echo chamber, then that means it's reinforced and it's correct and true every
mhm,
time. And then people can bring that attitude to a real life situation, and they end up in a completely different headspace because
yeah,
it's not like it was there, right? And so again, managing your expectations it's the best way to buffer disappointment, but
yeah,
also being honest brings you to reality. And like, oh, if I wanted this thing, I maybe could have asked for it or
yeah.
did it, right? Like that,
Or
right? And
just
so,
asked if it was gonna be available. Do I need to bring?
right,
Not just being like,
right. And so, if yeah, and then you're like, oh man, I didn't do that.
mhm,
But like that's hard for people to, who especially stay quiet. People say, I say quiet people have a hard time with
yes,
boundaries. Maybe the
and
more
people
introverted.
people pleasers.
Yes, right. So because they either don't know what their own are, or they expect others to constantly expect others to know what their own boundaries are and to not cross them, right? And then they build resentment
Yeah,
constantly,
yeah,
and that's not great for a relationship.
no.
It's just not with yourself or with the other person.
No. I think we have gotten into a place where we expect people to know what we need.
Mm,
We don't wanna have to tell anyone. We want everyone to be, kind of like a mind reader about, like, everyone's needs and their wants and their feelings and their emotions and all the things, and they should have known. I hear that all the time. They should have known. And, I think that we give people too much credit sometimes. Because 'cause I'm gonna be honest with you, no one thinks about you as much as you think about you.
that's right. That's
Like,
true.
I don't mean to be cruel. I don't think that's cruel. I think it's honest. I think that's part of the piece of this whole, like, no contact boundary
Mm,
conversation, not abusive relationships, but that is not being talked about is like, we're validating a lot of things, but we're not questioning and challenging other
mm,
things.
right.
And we're not asking people to say, "Okay, then let's change the lens here, and I want you to look at it through their lens." Like you said earlier, like this is a one lens
Mhm.
situation that, I want you to flip the script a little bit and stand in their shoes and think about where they're at, right? Like, could you potentially have some kind of grace or, mercy for these folks? And I don't know.
Right. And that sometimes that's where maybe even therapy could come in. If I hear no, then I go, okay, why not? Well, I was never given, like, oh, okay.
Um,
So this goes into something else, right?
yeah.
And so
But I
it
do
goes
think
into
like boundaries is like, well, you weren't given. Okay, well, do you want this relationship or not? Like,
right
that's
priority.
really the question
What's
is
the
like,
priority here? Yeah. Is that a thing you really want to change? Is that something you really want? If not, then why are you bothered about it? Like,
yeah.
let it be.
Well, and I think everyone in any relationship that they have has some kind of sword that they could fall on for sure. Right? Like someone wronged me, hurt me, uh said something that hurt my feelings, didn't invite me, I felt left out, I was whatever. And I think that at some point you just have to decide, like, is that person more important to you than sometimes the behaviors that those
Mm.
people exhibit? And then be honest with yourself about, are your behaviors 100 with them all the time?
Yeah. What could they be thinking? Or what is this? Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking to them about your relationship, how you feel? I guess it
Yeah.
depends on the relationship, but it really isn't a one-way street most of the time.
No, it's not. Well, because
No.
relationships
That's
are
what a relationship
dynamic,
is. Yeah.
right? They're dynamic. And so I think it's really important to kind of like be honest with yourself about what's going on there and why it is that you feel like you need to put up the walls. And I will just say this, boundaries, when I think about boundaries, and I did say, that they were to fortify relationships, but
Mhm.
it's bridges, not walls. Bridges, not
Yeah.
walls. Like we're trying to get up to a place of compromise, meet somewhere on this bridge, right? Come
Right.
together eventually, connect somehow. But a wall doesn't allow that. And so I talk to people about that all the time and have to remind myself about that too, because sometimes in your setting boundaries, you can get a little rigid and they do become wall-like.
It's true. Yeah. It becomes it becomes a comfortable standard to which you're kind of leaning on, and you're like, oh, why is it that way? And that's good to review with in your relationships when you find those, to think,
Mhm.
oh, is this something I still care about or need or whatever? And then if that is different for you, it might be good to tell the other person that too, that
Mhm.
it is still this way, or actually it's changed,
Yeah.
and it's good for them to know.
Yeah. I think just a lot of times we're asking people want to set big boundaries from the start. Like just like lay it down. I've got like 17 of them for you here.
Yeah.
And sometimes um it's not about that. It's about like the one small thing you can do for yourself. And so one boundary that I have is like with my phone. And sometimes, like, if the day has been kind of wild and crazy and I've been fielding a lot of phone calls, or I just haven't had a moment to like breathe, when my phone rings, I can determine like I can answer this phone call now or call them back later, but I need to figure out what I'm going to do. And sometimes, like for me, the avoidance of call later is more stressful than anything
Right.
else. So then when I answer the phone, I'm like, hey, I only have 5 minutes, but hey, what you got going on?
Hmm.
Like, and so my boundary was I set a boundary up front, which was,
Right.
hey, I only have 5 minutes. And sometimes it's when you take power back, sometimes the relationship that feels like out of whack, it's most evident in that relationship, let's say mother daughter, but probably it's that you don't have really good boundaries in lots of places. And if you had, you know, decent boundaries in lots of places, when this relationship gets sticky, it wouldn't feel so hard
It's a
because you have
practice.
boundaries. Yeah.
Right.
Does that
If
make
if you're
sense?
if you're implementing said boundaries in different areas of your life, it becomes easier to enforce them in different areas of your life,
Yeah.
wherever
Generalizing.
those are at. Yeah, in relationships especially.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, what is also another maybe like manipulation we might see this time of year? I already mentioned one. What else might we see?
Hmm. Um, I've heard of one where even people who have good boundaries, this is one. Uh, well, you always don't want to do this, or you always, right? It's like a shame for having the boundary in the
Oh,
first place.
oh,
And so, of like, well, how come you never this, right?
always and never.
Right. So you have these people who don't like your boundary, and they'll call you out every time they test it, because they're repeating to try to get you to change.
Hmm.
And
She
so
doesn't call, she never calls us,
Mhm.
yet they don't call you either.
Right.
So
And
you're like,
so
okay, now we're in a mirrored behavior situation. Who can
right.
be more petty?
That's right. And so
Money on Jessica.
right. Every time. And so that becomes hard for some people, who then feel guilty just for
Mhm.
having that. And you're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can just this one
Yeah.
time or whatever. And then they succumb to it, right?
Mhm.
Um, they succumb to whatever, and then it becomes, okay, well, now they feel guilty again for putting up that boundary again because they broke it that one time,
Yeah.
and it becomes hard for them, and that happens during the holidays especially, because a lot of times people are around families, not maybe by
Mhm.
force, but they don't really have a choice of who's there or who's not,
Yeah.
if they're going to somebody else's house or whatever. And
Mhm.
so things just kind of happen around them, and it gets chaotic and anxious, anxiety ridden for a lot of people to
Yeah.
try to for that to happen to them.
I think one of the things with your boundaries in like those kind of dynamics where, everyone's coming, you don't know who's really going to show up, who has been invited, who hasn't been invited. You don't know what that um maybe list looks like of people who is going to show up. Maybe part of the boundaries are like um one suggestion I gave to someone last year was when things get a little bit, you feel like kind of awkward or weird in a situation, you can always be like, I had made a promise to myself that I was going to go out and take a walk
Yeah.
for 30 minutes every single day. And I haven't done it yet. So I'm going to go do that. And you almost like keep that in your pocket for that awkward time, for that moment where you're like, gosh, I really don't want to be a part of this conversation. Gosh, I see my way out of this. And it's a way that is a boundary. It doesn't mean you have to have control over other people or their thoughts or their words, but you can control like yourself in that situation.
Yeah, it's for some people, I'd say even myself, as I've gotten older, and I don't know if you can attest to it the same way, when I find myself in fewer awkward situations because I don't have to be there. You don't have to. You don't have to experience it because you're there. You could just be like, oh man, this is awkward. I'm going to leave. You could just be, and if somebody says something, you're like, I don't like this, or I'm out. And I think, especially everybody knows that kind of,
I'm going to go check on.
yeah, I'm like, I'm out. Yeah, I'm going to go do this. Why? Because I don't want to be, I'll just say it. That's me.
Good for you, Daniel.
Yeah,
I don't typically say I don't.
Yeah, well, I was like, man, I don't like this, or whatever the situation is. If it's really, if it's just unnecessary, or there's tension because somebody's being
silly,
awkward, or mean, for drunk, whatever the thing is, I'm like, yeah, you'd have too much to drink. I don't have to be around this.
That's a good boundary to talk about.
Yeah, drinking, right? Being around the booze, other people who get drunk, or for a lot of people. Right. Everybody has this story. Everybody doesn't know they have this story, but they do. Remembering the first time you realized, oh, mom, dad, cousin, sister, brother, child, whatever, or, son, not child, but like son who's of age, the first time they got drunk and you were around them, you remember it.
Yeah.
You remember that. It's almost a slight, because it's not quite trauma. Sometimes it can be, but it's a shift in seeing this person from a different view of perspective and lens. And how do I act around this person when they're like this, especially if I don't like it?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, speaking of like a little bit of boundaries with things that are going on, office parties. Let me show you a little something I found on Instagram that made me just like laugh out loud. Let's see if I can get it up. This is from my stories. Let's see.
The police immediately.
Oh no, Dan, no.
Things are turning. They're turning. We can only imagine where we go from here, right?
Right. Yeah. And if any of y'all have that going on, God bless you at your Christmas.
So manage the drinks, and Dan from accounting definitely had a different job once upon a time.
Not me, different Dan. Yeah, wasn't me.
Oh my gosh.
No.
That's so good. Okay, the other thing that I think about, and I'm always like bringing up things that I've experienced myself and have heard other people talk about, just because I think then that's probably like real life experiences. I know they're my real life, but other people's as well. They're things that people encounter, like you said, people drinking too much, or saying things that comments that you don't want to be a part of, or whatever. One thing that had this is in recent years, but like there had been a game plan, okay, about like time, date, what was going to happen, whatever. Well, apparently all the moving parts of this decided to change the game plan. And of course, like finding out at the end, right? And there was a great moment for a good conversation, which was like, I'm not going to feel pressured into situations in which I wasn't even taken into consideration for.
Yeah.
And so, that gives a guilt-free situation, because it's one thing to be taken into consideration. But if you're in a situation where, you're not taken into consideration as like part of the group or the movement of that, the expectation is just for you to show up whenever they tell you to, then maybe like that's not it for you. Maybe that's a boundary for you, and which is like, I refuse to like prioritize things that I'm not even taking, like my time, my energy, myself, I'm not taking in consideration about.
Yeah, I think people do that Friday nights, Saturday nights all the time. They go, oh, hey, why don't you come out and blah blah blah. We're over here, and they go and join the group or whatever, and they want to go do something, and you're like, you feel pressure. It's usually younger people. You feel pressure to go do something, and you're like, oh, I don't know if that's something I even want to do, or I don't.
Come on, man.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, no, this was y'all's night. I just came as a tag along. Like, that's a really basic example of that. But it happens. It's just so common, and you don't have to be in those situations.
Mm-mm.
You really don't. And once you realize that, right, they call it like it has a bad connotation, but main character effect of like, oh, I can actually just kind of not do this.
Yeah.
You don't have, there's a lot of things you just don't quite have to do.
Yeah.
As far as being in situations. Now, writing it out for someone's birthday or whatever, how good of a friend are you? That's all gray area. But that's
that point of, am I willing to be inconvenienced? Like there are times where this is not going to be my jam.
Not everything has to be a cup of tea. Like it's not.
Because you're there for the relationship and to show like support and whatever, you don't
like the food at the wedding
for people. I think we've forgotten how to show up for people, honestly.
Yeah, only it's self, right? It goes back to self first, and everything else be damned, literally. Then your relationships will be damned. Like that. That's how that works.
Do you think that misused boundaries, based off of just your experience with working with people, misused boundaries have caused relationship friction more than appropriately handled boundaries?
Yeah, I think especially between the mixes of ages, where I say traditionally, let's say older millennials and on, even younger ones, you kind of do or give people more grace if you're not engaged into the culture of me first.
Mm-hmm. There's something clicking on your side, just so you know.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Oh, that's it.
Good?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm not. So I think the younger generations maybe even have a hard time because their philosophy is counter to the philosophy of the generation before them. That was actually the standard for all of history, mostly of your relationships. Working on those and being a priority of yourself.
I think one thing that we can kind of maybe brainstorm this and kind of end
And
here.
I
But
think, yeah.
the other day, we went to a office party, and when we were leaving, I don't remember if it was there that it was referred to as family, or if it was someone was saying there was an email that went out, and like multiple people on the same team kept saying like family, family, family. And my husband and I were having a conversation about this, and he was like, I'm really like uncomfortable. He said, I don't mean it ugly. I'm not uncomfortable, like, icky uncomfortable. He said, I don't think it's appropriate when they're saying family, and like, they don't even know your wife's name, or they don't know how many kids you have, or whatever. And they're saying like our work family, like we don't have those kind of relationships. Like this, we're just a team, we're a body of people, whatever it is, but we are not family.
Mhm.
And I think that once upon a time, like people would have said like, yeah, we treat people like family in workplaces. And now they're really hesitant to say things like that, because a third of the country is like no contact at all with their family. Another large portion believes that they have toxic family members.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And so like, I don't know that family quite has the ring to it that other
The
it
value is diminished in culturally, especially for the term.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same. Another um, another topic, another day. But like the
Yeah.
Gen Z stare of like the disconnect from society, definitely in the corporate sense of I'm not gonna, once you're hired on, especially at a job, when they don't really want to perform, do the performative smile or anything. With the Gen Z stare, that's another symptom of something similar. Of like I don't want to be here, but you could I'll have the job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's that aspect.
Yeah, it's it goes back to, I think of like the JFK speech, like ask not what your country
Yeah.
will do for you, but what you can do for your country. And like,
Mhm.
no, wait.
It's flipped now. Yeah.
And in lots of different places, and not just but lots of places. And so I think that's really interesting. Any thoughts, anything else that you want to leave anyone with regarding like going into the Christmas season and boundaries, and just
More. Yeah.
family and gatherings?
More people. If you want better relationships, I would always say it starts with you. I'll tell you, everybody, the onus is on you. It can start with them, and that would be nice if it did. But if you're the one reaching out and it's not working, then you can be in peace with how things come out. If you're not in peace right now and you're not doing anything about it, then it's up to you. You
Yeah.
can, and so it's okay to have uncomfortable conversations. The conversation, trust me, is way less uncomfortable to have that initial conversation than it is to exist in the super uncomfortable situation perpetually because you didn't just talk for 5 minutes with somebody that you needed to.
Yeah.
Just go for it. Just go
Half the
for it.
battle is getting
Just do
started.
it. Yeah, it's a little before it spreads and it's wildfire.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of the people, like I said, going back to the Oprah Winfrey stuff, that I was listening, and I couldn't listen to it all because but some of those people hadn't talked to any of their family members in 4 years, in 6 years. And I mean, it hurt my heart
Yeah.
for them, because I mean, surely there's one person, like a sad cousin or
Right,
something,
right.
like that you can like still stay connected to. And I think that is, again, goes back to that all or nothing. Like, I'm either all in on family and it's going to look exactly how I want it to look, and we're going to behave in this certain way, or I'm all the way out. And like, family is messy. People are messy. Relationships are messy, and nothing ever goes according to plan. And people don't act the way that you would like them to act all the time. And I think that, in a broader sense, this again goes back to also like just relationships and the people not getting married and not dating and all sorts of things, because we have these boundaries that are so rigid and standards that are so high, and meanwhile expecting them to hold standards of me that are achievable and attainable. And so it's a tough place to be right now in these places. And so I think our message might be encouraging you to find someone you can find some common ground with.
Yeah, and if you can, and find that common ground and go from there, do something with it.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's it for today. We will pick up here another day, and I'm sure Mr. Daniel will grace us with his presence again, right, Daniel?
I shall.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.